Hello, beautiful people. So I'm at CoinGeek this week and I've left my trusted blue couch, my podcast format, to the true builders of Gravity. Sure, no one's assumed that I'm out here doing this all by myself. We have great production here at Bitstocks with our media, and we have great quality of execution with Gravity, with our product and our ecosystem. I think it's time you guys should actually hear a little bit more about what it is that we're building from the very people who are building it. And we have been working on some incredible things and concepts for a few years now. And we feel that CoinGeek, that this event at CoinGeek is really bringing all of those ideas and concepts ultimately to a head. So privacy, transparency, and identity, we feel and have always felt now for quite some number of years, are going to be very important distinctions with how people commerce and transact on Bitcoin moving forward. And naturally, we have a horse in that race, which I'll be touching on in my panels over at CoinGeek. And the team will go in a lot more detail about how we're executing on some of these concepts. Also, as well, we are very close now to releasing our iPhone application for Gravity. And excitingly, in this episode, you're going to get a sneak peek at our iOS application. And as always, if no one in my team does this, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, and go absolute to town in the comment boxes because we do read them.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special Bitstocks podcast today. So my name is Julien Riposo. I'm Chief Research Officer at Bitstocks. So my role is basically to do maths, but not any maths. The mathematics applied to the Gravity ecosystem in order to innovate and build the concepts for the development of the platform. I have the Chief Technology Officer with me, David. So hi, David. How are you doing?
I'm good, Julien. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is David Arakelian. And as Julien said, I am the current CTO of Bitstocks. And my role consists of proposing technical solutions to the technology that we are trying to use, such as Bitcoin right now. I've been passionate about Bitcoin since 2013, I would say. And since then, and since meeting Michael around that time, I just didn't see any other way than just working together and combining the forces.
Right. So we're gonna talk about privacy and solvency today, David. And I have two questions for you and for me, for us. So the first question is, as our CTO, David, and lead developer of Gravity, what have you been working on this year?
So I would probably think about three major tasks that we are focusing on this year at Bitstocks. One of them is specifically around solvency, which I will leave you to elaborate a little bit more from the mathematical aspects of it and the cryptography. That, for me, is a very important topic because nowadays companies strive to be transparent, but they don't use the tools which exist, which can make them transparent. So at Bitstocks and at Gravity, what we are trying to do right now is to leverage those tools and be as open and opaque that we can be in order to bring this technology and allow people to see that we as a company, we operate in a solvent manner. And that should be, I think, the standard, the minimum standard for any other company coming to this space, because people, I think, are getting very nervous when they delegate the money that they have earned in such a hard way to third-party companies. So the least that we can do as a financial institution is to make sure that we can give them that reassurance that their funds are safe at any given time. The second part is, I'm happy to say that now that we have been working thoroughly about launching our iPhone application. So specifically on iOS for now. Android will come in a little bit later, but it's on the pipeline yet. This will allow people to be very mobile because we think that to have access to your funds and to everything around to your day-to-day usage, it should be as quick as possible. So the easiest way will be to manage your funds through your mobile application, which we have been thoroughly testing and making sure that it's easy to use. And the third one, I would say, we have reorganized our internal processes quite heavily. The reason being is that we want to be as efficient as we can, but also learn from our customers what their desired outcome will be by using our products and services. So one thing, for instance, we have been doing is, if anyone is interested in reading as well, can check a book which is called A Black Box Thinking. So the concept shortly is to learn from your mistakes and to improve on your next, basically, journey, and to apply the things that you have learned. So I think those will be the three main points that we have been focusing on this year.
On my side, I've been focusing on different things as well, not only sovereignty and privacy, but also Bitcoin halving and Satoshi precision, right? So as you guys know, 21 million Bitcoins is not the exact amount of Bitcoin that we are going to obtain. So we are thinking of identifying some patterns within this halving behavior and how it's behaving. And we have actually discovered some patterns, which I had the opportunity to prove mathematically that they are correct. And the next goal with this is indeed to figure out a technology, which, and specifically a fractal technology, which will be able to travel through these different aspects of Bitcoin. I keep the suspense. And about solvency, I would like to complement that the tool that we are going to develop internally, it's going to be an interactive and intuitive show around proof of control of addresses gathering the Bitcoins of our customers. And we are going to perform that in very regular basis. So it can be, we will discuss internally if it's several months but the long run is going to be instantly, right? So that's going to be very powerful compared to all other exchanges, right? It's going to be to give the possibilities to our customers to check that we are indeed solvent, or we are not, but instantly, right? At every instance. So that would be more the long run, right?
So I think it is definitely like innovation in terms of how we want to give this to the people. There are companies who do auditing and prove that they're solvent, but that includes like third-party auditors, such as the big auditing companies. But we have the tools and the technology to do it. And with your math skills, we will be able to crack this. And we have done a proof of concept which works quite well. And it will be very, very interesting to see how people will be reacting to see that their funds is safe indeed.
Yeah, that's very, very exciting indeed. And there is another aspect which is very complementary to solvency. This is the privacy aspect as well, right? Regarding privacy, why do you think it's insecure to put everything on the blockchain?
Well, there are multiple aspects of it, but the major fallacy about putting everything on chain when it involves like personal data is that once it is on chain, you will most likely have people who have a copy somewhere out there. Even if there is a changes in the way that blockchain will be purged, or there is a way of the government to enforce certain things, you will still have people who will have that data somewhere. So if you do really want to keep your privacy intact, it is very important to make sure that you only give the information to the selected parties that you agree to share that data. In terms of leveraging the blockchain, I think it is a proxy for you to share your data rather than just put everything on there and make sure that it is available for everyone. So the privacy aspect will keep and act as a shielding mechanism for your data to be intact, but you still can be using that technology to share your data and access certain services and goods.
I would like to complement with a very simple case. On the blockchain, for instance, if you take a very mere transaction between Alice and Bob. So let's say Bob is giving some Bitcoin to Alice, right? This mere transaction just appears in the blockchain as it is, right? And for a privacy attacker, it's very, very easy from just this mere transaction to go backwards on the blockchain to select the appropriate information of addresses, right? All the addresses related to Alice specifically, right? One solution is to make an explosion of sub-signals, right? So one transaction is going to be divided into thousands, millions of transactions, so that, as we say, the entropy of privacy increases, which means that you have a lot of possibilities for an attacker to choose the appropriate bunch of addresses. Yeah. So the big advantage of this model is that the more our customers are using Gravity, the higher is the entropy of privacy.
I think that's exactly from mathematical and technical point of view, it's correct what you are trying to say and what we want to offer. But there is also one aspect of it as which is ease of use of the services that we provide.
Exactly.
We are trying to make sure that we are really best at the services that we provide, and we are being transparent about it, and it is just working for the people the way that they want to, rather than it is very complicated or cumbersome for them.
Yes.
What we want to do from a technical aspect and what we want to offer our customers is basically making it seamless and transparent to use all this. That's all I want to say.
Right. So, David, we have a question from one member of the community. Here is the question. Implementing something like Solvency is very innovative and disruptive. How do you think the financial industry will respond to this innovation?
Personally, I do want to believe that they will follow and they will be accepting it as an innovation and offering the same solutions. But I think there will be the opposite, which will cause a little bit of trouble, which will be a different approach, which I don't blame them because they want to stay relevant in their industry. And it will create friction. I personally think it will create friction. So they will try to not apply that technology because it will remove lots of business use cases that they are doing right now behind the scenes with the money that people are lending to them. So one way will be to have new companies as us trying to adopt it and use it so they stay behind. And that will force them either to adopt it or just be the dinosaur in the room. That's kind of how I foresee it.
I think that there is behind this, it's a profound question, right? It's not necessarily dealing with solvency or privacy themselves, but it's the whole Bitcoin community. From what I have observed specifically from the regulators, right? They are ignorant of Bitcoin. They don't know what Bitcoin is, right? And they see Bitcoin as a crypto money, but it's much more than money. It's a technology. And since they don't know what the technology is, they don't necessarily measure the revolution that Bitcoin is and Bitcoin represents. So to complement what you said, David, I think one important aspect is to educate people, right? They need to know better what Bitcoin is, to try to communicate a message in very simple terms, which is not easy in the context of blockchain because it's a complicated area. But I think one aspect indeed is also to educate people.
Yeah, I think that's also very important for people to understand and have the knowledge. You are right, entirely right.
Well, David, it's the end of our section for this podcast. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you guys as well enjoyed this conversation. But don't leave now, because next, Damien and Manny will talk a little bit about identity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
With the new Gravity iOS application, buying and selling is more linear, making it faster for you to trade your Bitcoin. Hi, everyone. I am Damien Hartley-Swan, Head of Design and Brand, and I'm joined by
Emmanuel Alamu. I'm Chief Operating Officer here at Bitstocks. And today, in this segment of the podcast, we're going to be talking about ID solutions on the blockchain, namely Gravity ID, and also our upcoming iOS app release.
Yep.
It's long awaited. We're finally going to give it to our users.
Yep.
So, Damien, what have you been working on the last year with regards to our iOS app?
Well, the past year, the focus primarily has been the iOS app. So we've basically taken all of the lessons that we've learned from releasing the web version, looked at the mistakes we've made, looked at how people are actually using the product. And we've kind of taken all those lessons and put them into a new version. Everything looks very different. Not very different, but there are considerable changes.
Some big changes.
Yeah. But I also think it's more in line with the experience that people in this day and age are used to having when dealing with native apps, especially around finance and cryptocurrency. So yeah, big changes, small changes, but also changes that I think the users are really going to appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. 2 big changes that I love: investment pots.
Yes.
So we're redoing the whole way that investments is done now.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you opportunity for customers to engage with investments in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at the moment, we kind of, on the web version, we have the ability to create multiple accounts. We realized that wasn't really working the way it was kind of intended to, not by the masses anyway. So we've kind of taken that same concept and condensed it down into a version that allows users to kind of almost diversify their portfolio while still remaining in one segment without having to go to different areas and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's also a really great feature that's coming to the new application.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, I would say notifications. We're going to have the in-app notifications for a lot of the things that we want to do on the app. Definitely price alerts is going to be a key one. No more getting it on your emails, having to wait or check your emails every hour. You get the actual price alert exactly when the market price is touched. Yeah. So
exactly. They're just the simple things that make having an application, a native application, just easier for the user to actually engage with. At the moment, like you said, it's email. If you're somewhere where, it's not really the best time or you can't access your emails, you just kind of miss out on those kind of key moments that happen in the market, which, as we all know and have probably experienced, there are certain points that you don't really want to miss out when things happen in the market and the price gets to a certain point. You don't really want to not receive that notification. So yeah, they're things that really make the application more suitable for users.
Yeah, definitely. So from my side on the app, it's really been changing the processes and operations that we've done to actually get the app. So I've been working very closely with yourself on how we can reinvent and re-overhaul the product management suite, right? So we've changed our whole process. We've been able to understand and learn a lot more about how it is to deliver an app. So the iOS app is coming soon. The Android app is coming soon after, and we'll be able to deliver all the features that users have been asking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. So at CoinGeek, Mike spoke on a panel about the essence of blockchains with regards to property rights, and namely how we are going to change the way that we do financial services and identification. Every single blockchain has a way to be able to tag the identity to a transaction. And this is something that we're hoping to bake into our Gravity ID model and our solution to make it different than others. So how have you been looking at that from a design perspective?
I mean, from a design perspective, what we really want to do is have it be something that's seamless. If you try and think back to a time before Gmail or Facebook would allow you to log into all these other services with those same credentials, you literally had to go through all these different applications, all these different websites with new login information, essentially all to do the same thing. They're all asking you an email address and a password to give you access. In the crypto space, essentially, we want to create a version of that that allows you to basically take your identity with you, because we already have people go through AML KYC where we have officially and formally verified that this person is who they say they are. That also puts us kind of like a step ahead, but it means that when we do bring out Gravity ID, we already have the necessary information that proves that someone is who they say they are. So when they then want to take that information to somewhere else, they shouldn't necessarily have to fill out all these forms again, go through all this onboarding and verification, because it's already been done. So essentially for us, it's creating that in a very seamless environment and a seamless way. That means that when you go to somewhere like Twitch or wherever it may be, you're simply just logging in with Gravity ID and you're taking that information.
Yeah, exactly. I think what you said is great. It's like what we're taking home, what a user actually takes home and does with it is the key to them being self-sovereign. We preach about transparency, we preach about privacy, and we also talk about sovereignty. And we want every single customer, everyone in our community to be self-sovereign. So self-sovereign means to be, in every aspect you control your property, real estate, your money, your time, but definitely the most importantly is your identity. And being self-sovereign means that you'll be able to have access to different, corporations and access to different services in the digital space, but then you have control of what they can do with your data. So it really comes down to the main acronym, BYOY, bring your own identity. And the way that you authenticate yourself online is with your control. And that's the main thing that we're bringing with Gravity ID.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good, and that is kind of the point, right? Because if we go back to the example of Gmail or Facebook, for example, you've probably signed in so many places with these credentials that you don't even remember what's using what anymore, let alone what information you've actually given these people access to.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the blockchain. Like that's literally the beauty of it, because you can see where all this information has gone to, where it's coming from, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I really think that's actually such a valuable point and an important point that makes Gravity ID in this space very different to the kind of forms of identity that we currently use in today's society.
Yeah, definitely. So a question we've got from our community has been, what is the inspiration for the design of Gravity?
I think I'd say it's a hard question to answer because inspiration comes from lots of places. I definitely think that for those who have followed us for a long time, they might remember back when we used to say everything yet nothing. But also it also ties into our strapline now of consciously connected. The whole point of what we're doing is to make it easy for the community, not even easy for the community, it's easy for the people who aren't necessarily inside the community to gain access to the community. It's sometimes been quite hard because, you know, you have to deal with jargon. You kind of sometimes even have to know an element of how to develop. And it's always been a hard process for just average Joe blogs to be like, oh, I want to buy Bitcoin or I want to buy any kind of cryptocurrency. So that's always kind of been the thought process around what we're designing. It has to be simple. It has to be easy for anyone to be able to use. So that kind of consciously connectivity that ties us all together, that's always kind of at the forefront. From a visual point of view as well, though, I mean, as a designer, we find inspiration in anything, like in the apps that we use in our day-to-day, that, you know, to a certain point, we're consumers as well, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You know, maybe not with our own products because we have to think about things very differently. But when we're using other products, we're also looking at that like, oh, that was actually really easy to onboard, or buying that was really easy, or all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we kind of take inspiration from everything around us. Sometimes you just walk down the street and you're like, that's a nice bit of pavement that's nice and clean. And you're like, do you know what? It's really clean.
There's something about that,
So
right? Yeah.
inspiration comes from everywhere. But, you know, whatever we do, we have to make sure that it aligns with who we are as a company, and being consciously connected and being able to create something that all people can kind of form around and have a hub. That's definitely at the forefront of what inspires us and how it inspires us to design.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Hope you enjoyed our chat. Next up is Nicola and Simon talking about transparency.
With the new Gravity iOS application, we've now made it easier to share your introducer link with native sharing functionality.
Hey everyone, my name is Simon and I'm the social media manager here at Bitstocks. And now we're going to talk a little bit about transparency and how we built up the brand of Gravity and Bitstocks, and a bit about its evolution. And I'm joined today with the lovely Nicola, who is our head of marketing, and
Yes.
I'll let her introduce herself.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely intro, Simon. So yeah, my name's Nicola Shillingford and I am head of marketing here at Bitstocks. And Si, I know you got some questions for me.
Yes, indeed. So for the first question, I wanted to talk a bit about the evolution of the brand of Gravity and kind of how you've grown that since you started your role as head of marketing, which was roughly at the time of CoinGeek, right? When we announced
Yeah, I
it.
think it was like a couple of weeks before CoinGeek 2020. That was kind of when I took the reins a little bit.
Yeah, that's probably the best time to take over a role
Oh my
like that,
God,
right?
I know, right? It was definitely, what's the saying, thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, definitely.
I embodied that statement at that time. And after CoinGeek, I think it was like a month after CoinGeek, we went into lockdown. So that was pretty much when I started my head of marketing role. And at that time, just like everyone else in the world, I think we kind of took the opportunity to pause and reflect, look at the marketing strategy, look at what worked, what didn't work. And, you know, at Bitstocks, we really do understand the power of Bitcoin technology and how it can be utilized in business and global infrastructures, but more importantly, how it can purify the financial institutions. And I think with that being said, it's really important to make sure that when you have that mission, your messaging is accessible to the everyday person on the street. So when I came into this role, that was definitely something that I really wanted to focus on. And I kind of took that opportunity to really look at our messaging, strip it back, kind of simplify it a little bit, and just decide how we're going to move forward as a brand in that light, and in order for us to kind of achieve mainstream adoption. So I think some of the things that we have done over the year to adhere to that would be, our media schedule, for example, that we have from the beginning of this year. We really committed to ensuring that there's consistency with our media schedule. So, our audience have come to know that we drop a podcast every Thursday at 5:00, basically. And that's really allowed us to not only elevate our educational voice by having that consistency, but also build a really loyal audience as well, which we've really seen in our numbers recently, which has been great. We've ramped up our PR. We've ramped up our Gravity how-tos. So explaining what Gravity does now, but also explaining what it's going to be in the future, and kind of keeping our audience updated with what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, I think is really important, because it allows our audience and our community to feel like they're a part of what we're doing, which is really important to us here at Bitstocks. And something that we've done quite recently actually is revisit our written content strategy. At Bitstocks, since inception, we've always written blogs, but I think what we were doing before was obviously more for our investment literate audience, which was the audience that we had at the time, and we still have that audience now. But since our crowdfund in January, we've really started to see more of a mainstream audience that we're starting to adopt. We've got a lot more millennials that we need to speak to now. So I think it's important that with our written content strategy, we have blogs that, I can send to my mum, for example, and she would understand the importance of Bitcoin technology and how it can be utilized in business. But it's also important that we still cater to our investment literate audience and community. So I think it's about getting that balance right. And I think right now we're exactly where we're meant to be. But I do think there's a lot more to be done. But I mean, this because you've been in the marketing team since I kind of started this role as well. So I guess I'm going to throw the question back at you. What do you think some of the changes have been?
Yeah, I definitely agree as far as it's quite hard to find the right balance in what we're doing. Because of course, what some people might not actually realize is that we are building a financial ecosystem while also running an educational media house with our Bitstocks Media YouTube channel. So, of course, we have our podcast, we have the Truth and Lies series, we have Site. And I think our mission has always been to make Bitcoin accessible and kind of a lot easier to understand, because even myself, I didn't come from a financial industry or kind of Bitcoin industry when I started my role at this company. And at first, when you first join, it's a bit overwhelming, of course, because not only do you have to understand the basics of what is cryptocurrency, but then you also have the specific stuff such as, BSV versus BTC, and then you got stuff like BCH, and there's different camps, I guess, for each side of the coin. So there's so many particulars to understand. And what we're trying to do is really filter it down to the fact that we're focused on the technology and what it will allow humanity to achieve in the future, and the transparency side of things, and kind of shining the light on the more benevolent side of the financial system, rather than really focusing on what each coin is and who's behind what coin and what the price is of any other coin, because I don't think that matters in the long term.
Yeah.
And we even had to make that shift because, of course, at the beginning, Bitstocks was all about investments. So we were very much, price focused, whereas now we're a lot more future and sort of tech focused with everything that we're building. And of course, I know that Mike has had some exciting announcements at CoinGeek. So that's a whole another side to what we're doing now. So yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. It's about our biggest challenge is definitely making the Bitcoin for people, for everyone, essentially, not just for the very tech nerdy people out there.
Absolutely. #BSV is Bitcoin.
So being an educational media house, of course, we know that Bitcoin has a lot of uses, one of which is kind of shining that light on the corruption of the financial system. And of course, this is something that Michael touched in his CoinGeek presentation. So what are your thoughts on sort of big corporations and big finance companies adopting Bitcoin? Because I know at the moment they're very reluctant to the technology, because I think partially they understand that this will remove a lot of the wiggle room for them when it comes to corruption and the shadier side of their business. So do you think they will eventually adopt this technology, or will they stay sort of pushing back and trying to avoid it?
That's a good question. I would say on a day-to-day basis, you don't really think about, the corruption in the current global banking systems. I mean, unless you work at Bitstocks, we do all the time. And I think the internet is something that really alleviated the distortions of the spoken word, and it allowed us to communicate on a peer-to-peer basis globally much easily. But I think there are still distortions with the monetary systems that have not yet been tackled and have not yet been resolved. And I think this is really where Bitcoin enters, and this is really where the utility of Bitcoin tech kind of shines through. So at Bitstocks, we kind of describe Bitcoin with the paper and pen analogy. That's what we like to use to, again, simplify our messaging and make it very accessible for people to understand. So if you think of a piece of paper, it archives information, it keeps order. That is essentially the Bitcoin network. And then the pen, which allows you to write on the piece of paper, is the Bitcoin token. So if you kind of take that analogy, what is so groundbreaking about that? What is so important about that? How can that purify financial institutions? And I think with, what is so important and so unique about the Bitcoin network is that it takes something like a piece of paper and it digitized it. It made it public. It made it so anyone in the world can view and audit the inscribed records, anywhere in the world at any given time. It makes the whole world the witness. So why is that so important? Because it puts the power back into the hands of the majority. It means that we can determine the polarity of intent of the interactions on chain. And it means that if there is malevolent action, if there is malevolent behavior, we can see that and we can hold those people accountable. And, today in the UK, financial institutions, they adhere to quarterly reports. So this is where they give information about their credits and debits. And, with it being a quarterly report, it means that they have 3 months in order to provide this information. So, 3 months is a lot of time to make things appear as they're not, if that's what your intent is. And, I can only assume that's probably what banks like HSBC did when they were laundering money for Mexican drug cartels.
No way.
So why Bitcoin is so amazing and the Bitcoin technology is so amazing is because it takes that 3-month window and it reduces that time lag to literally 10 minutes. So even if there is a change as well within that 10 minutes, there is evidence of that change. And that's just so empowering. And I think the question becomes, why would you not adopt this tech if you're a bank? If you can provide such transparent infrastructure to your customers, why would you not? What do you have to hide? And if I was someone who was looking for a bank, I know who I would pick. I would pick a bank who can provide such infrastructure. And, that's really what we're trying to do here with Gravity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think the key word there was accountability, right? So we're not saying let's, dismantle all the banks and, let's just have this system of anarchy. All we want is just sight over what these banks are doing as far as like these kind of things. And I think you're absolutely right as far as like the blockchain technology. What it allows us to do is just see a trail of evidence essentially of what has been done. And then if there is some kind of foul play, they can just go back and say, okay, these are the people that were involved. This is exactly what they did. This is where the money went, which is huge, right?
Absolutely.
It's that like trail of evidence.
It's empowering. It makes you feel sovereign. It gives you the choice, If you have a bank that has transparent infrastructure versus a bank that doesn't, you then are empowered in your choice with who you want to bank with.
Yeah. And
I think it's inevitable who you will pick.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like you said, if they're not doing anything bad, then they got nothing to lose. And essentially, that's all it is. There is, from my opinion, like there's no downside really. And I think it's actually quite funny to see how the opinion of like big corporations and big sort of financial companies currently changing on like cryptocurrency. I remember JP Morgan, I think the CEO of JP Morgan in 2017, he was talking about Bitcoin. He was like, oh, it's a scam, like straight up. And now they're actually offering, I believe, Bitcoin investments to some of their clients the last time I checked. And that's kind of been the trend from what I've seen with a lot of other companies, whereas like initially when it just started out, they're like, oh, this is nonsense because it challenged their financial model so much, or their business model, I should say. It really kind of shook up how they do things, and they were like, this makes no sense. And now that more and more people are getting involved with cryptocurrency, of course, they don't want to miss out on these business opportunities. And now they're pretending that, you know, they love the idea of it all along, and they're up for adoption of these kind of things, and that they want to help advance the technology, which of course we've been doing for a long time. So we've seen the general opinion of other companies in the space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think what we're going to see now over the next few years is kind of the companies who are really adopting this tech for the right reasons versus the companies who, you know, are really just trying to jump on the bandwagon, don't really understand the tech, or maybe do understand the power of the tech, but don't want to adopt it in the right ways because they understand the power of the tech. So I think over the next couple of years, we're really going to see who the real players are. And we are definitely one of them.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because I think over the past couple of years, we've definitely seen that growing and especially promoting a company like ours is always an uphill battle, because a lot of, whether it's advertising companies or, you know, social media companies, they don't quite understand the technology. And of course, we've been tarnished with the whole scam brush and things like that, because a lot of other companies don't do things the right way. They don't care about the regulations. They don't care about the law. All they want to do is make a quick buck. And then that therefore kind of ruins things for us when we're trying to promote a company that does things the right way and tries to, of course, always stay with the regulation and kind of looking at the law and following the law and things like that.
Definitely. I think it taints the image of Bitcoin as well. And that's definitely some of the challenges that we've faced with, you know, growing our audience and growing our community, is the misconceptions of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's definitely been improving, but I think this was actually one of our community questions was, what are some of the challenges you as head of marketing kind of see when it comes to promoting Gravity as a financial ecosystem?
I think what we were basically speaking about, to be honest, some of the challenges that we faced, although we are an EMD agent of Modular, we're not a regulated bank just yet. And so because of that, we haven't really been able to promote Gravity as financial services. There are some challenges that comes with that. So I would say definitely that has been one of our biggest hurdles that we are continuing to get over and overcome, but it's still a long journey to come. But this is exactly why we're taking regulation so seriously. This is why we've joined forces with Crypto UK, for example. With us, compliance, regulation, following the law, doing things right is so important. And, you know, even with our educational platform being Bitstocks Media, some of the things that we talk about on there is, you know, corruption and providing sight to some of the issues that we've had historically with the government, the financial institutions, the corruption that exists there. So obviously with that type of content comes censorship as well. And we've had our fair share of censorship. And although it's been incredibly frustrating, to be completely honest, this is why I think we have tactics like the ambassador program, for example, where we join forces with like-minded individuals who can help us elevate our message and help us with our mission. So, you know, that was when we kind of teamed up with Nassim Harriman, for example, as well, on Truth and Light, an individual who is incredibly in resonance with what we're doing here at Bitstocks and Gravity, and someone who can help us get the message out there. So I think definitely from my point of view, and just kind of something that I've wanted the team to be very aware of, is we do face these challenges with kind of censorship and not being able to promote our services as financial services just yet. So we've had to be creative, I would say, in how we get our message out there. But it's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. But it has been a bit of a blessing in disguise, I think, because, rather than relying on paid content, we had to focus a lot on our organic content. So, whether it's our blogs, whether it's our Bitstocks media, our social media. So I think that kind of forced us to step our game up even further and really try to convey to people what Gravity is through this organic content and really showing what we're all about as a brand.
Definitely. And I think that's helped us kind of identify who we are as a brand as well, because, our brand really is us. So I think over the next year, I really want us to become a little bit more creative with our marketing efforts as well. So, Michael's recently announced that we're going to be going into a joint venture with Vinex for our NFT marketplace. So with NFTs, again, going back to what I was saying before, I think NFTs has taken the crypto space by storm. It's been a conversation that is happening with kind of just different people that I know as well. People who are not really in the Bitcoin space, don't really know about crypto, but want to ask me everything about NFTs because they know I'm involved in crypto. So I think NFTs have been really groundbreaking in the sense that it's opened up the opportunity for us to have a conversation with people who maybe don't really know much about Bitcoin who haven't done in the past or who haven't been interested in it in the past. I think those types of people are becoming more interested in crypto and the Bitcoin space because of NFTs. So with our joint venture, I think it really allows us to open our marketing efforts to our community, maybe do more things where we can engage more with our audience as well and our community, and just become a little bit more fun and creative with what we're doing here. And I think NFT and our joint venture with Vinex will really allow us to do that. And I guess this is a nice opportunity to basically ask the community as well. If you have any ideas on how you'd want to collaborate with us, when our NFT marketplace comes into play, please do let us know in the comments below, because I would really love for us to get a little bit more engaged with our community. And I think with the NFT marketplace, that will really allow us the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting because it does provide us with a way to empower our audience and empower a lot of the maybe creators that are perhaps following us and like our mission and kind of align ourselves with our mission. And I definitely agree that NFTs have opened the conversation as far as what exactly is Bitcoin, what is blockchain. A lot of people are getting involved in the space now because of NFTs. It is a bit of a shame that a lot of NFTs that are being at the spotlight lately, a lot of the NFT platforms aren't really doing things the right way.
Exactly.
So I know Michael has touched on this quite a few times and on our podcast, and is that they run on quite faulty plumbing, we should say, let's put it politely.
Yes.
Is that on the surface, it all looks great, but behind the scenes stuff doesn't work. And I've seen it with many different platforms that people are calling them out for okay, your NFTs aren't stored on chain, or there's some kind of other issues. So I'm really excited as to what we can do with Vinex as far as building a platform that truly works.
And the fees as well, and tackling the amount at the moment that it costs to mint on the platforms that are allowing you to mint a token and create NFTs. I think that's a massive issue that we're really trying to tackle with our solution.
It's an insane difference. But that's why I didn't even want to touch on it, because I'd say it's an elephant in the room, but it's a big ass whale in the room. But it does make a huge difference. I'm incredibly excited for that, and as far as what that will bring to our future as far as a company and Gravity as a platform.
Exactly.
Okay, everyone, this ends our very special episode of the Bitstocks podcast. But before we run away, here's a very special message from our CEO, Michael Hudson.
So everyone, I hope you really enjoyed that. And I just want to leave by saying to everyone who has supported us over the years, and most notably those who contributed to our crowdfund campaign at the beginning of this year, who really bounded behind our mission, resonated with our message, and for how long we've been communicating one message, and how we are now acting and building upon that message with our actions and our product service offering with what we're building with Gravity. Our efforts here are very humanity driven. They are impossible to do without the backing of humanity. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been showing such great support, not only for Gravity as a platform, but also Bitstocks media channel as a platform. And ultimately, neither platforms have any form of value or credence if it isn't for you guys. And just for myself and everyone at the team, we really just want to thank you on that. But the mission is not done. It's not even close to being done. We're not even remotely close to firing on all cylinders. And it's still an experiment. The things it is that we're doing with Gravity to bring transparency, to really try and be an apex in the world of finance, it's a challenge. And the only way that we see this experiment working is if you guys are with us and if you guys are spreading and sharing that message. We've even tried to make that as easy as possible with our introducer program. It's something that we're actually really going to light up with the concept of NFTs and with our marketing efforts, because there'll be a lot of stuff coming to that too, to make the concept of sharing the message that is Gravity and being consciously connected, but not losing away from the fact that in order to make true change in the world, we need to be sovereign. I just, again, from everyone, we thank you, but it ain't done yet. We still need you. And we're gonna keep on doing our bit. And you guys, please keep on doing your bit.